writer.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to The Recovery. We've got Angus next to me. I'm Michael DePetta. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. Hello, Angus.
I'm good. How are you?
All right, so today we're breaking down the biggest trade the NBA seen in a little while, the Kyrie Irving for Isaiah Thomas trade. We have a look around the local footy leagues. Our burning question focuses on Nathan Buckley's future. And, we've got a lot to talk about today.
We have got a very good show today, yeah.
But first, we'll go to the news headlines with Angus.
A 3-year-old girl in Sydney's West has died after being shot in the neck, and the police are investigating whether the toddler managed to shoot herself inside the family home. Emergency crews were called to the house on Danny Road in Layla Park in Sydney's West just after 8 p.m. on Sunday, following reports of gunfire and loud yelling.
Victoria Nationals MP Russell North is set to resign from the party today, following his struggles with gambling and depression. Mr North has been on paid leave since June, and it is believed that he has racked up significant debt to multiple people following gambling-related incidents. And we're just getting breaking news here that Channel 10 has just been bought out by CBS.
Yeah. Asylum seekers are facing a welfare crackdown, and Labor have labelled the government as cruel and heartless over its decision to cut financial assistance to a group of asylum seekers. Refugee advocates claim pregnant women are among those who will be forced to leave the country.
In the AFL, the final 8 are set, with Melbourne making way for West Coast following their loss to Collingwood on Saturday and the Eagles' percentage booster against Adelaide yesterday. Richmond will be given the double chance following their convincing victory against St Kilda, and Lance Franklin has taken out the Coleman medal after kicking 10 goals on the weekend, giving him 69 for the year, 4 more than second place Josh Kennedy.
And in cricket, Bangladesh finished all out for 260, and the bowlers shared the wickets, with Lyon, Cummins and Agar all taking 3. However, a top-order batting collapse sees Australia 3 for 18 overnight, 242 runs behind.
Well, that's the news for today. We're going to get into the weekend sport highlights. So Hawthorn had a really big game, obviously, on Saturday night. Hodgie's last game, also for the Doggies, Bob Murphy's last game, Matty Boyd's last game. But it was the Hawks who got the job done.
Yeah, it was. Look, it was a good game. It was close, at least on the scoreboard for most of the night. Doggies gave them a late scare in the last quarter. It was a good start from both sides. Hodgie took a while to get into the game. I think he just had the 1 or 2 touches next to his name at quarter time. But it was good to see Bob Murphy kick a goal in his last game here.
Obviously, at the time, the Dogs were still playing for a final spot. They didn't, their destiny wasn't in their own hands. But at this point in time, they were playing for a final spot, but they didn't really rise to the occasion how you thought they might have. And it was Jarrett Rufford, really, who did the job for the Hawks.
Yeah, he was terrific, Rufford. Sicily was back to his best as well today. I think he had 27 touches and about 12 marks as well. And a little bit of a celebration there as well from outside 50. So he bounced back after a really poor game last week.
No, it's just in general, I think it was good for Hawthorn supporters. It's a little bit of a glimpse, hope for the future. Bit of young talent on display. Some of the players that maybe were questionable, maybe have started to prove themselves a little bit this season. There's Ruffy back to his best, has to rip a snap. But for the Doggies, it's a fall from grace. It's first to ninth, and where do you go from here?
Yeah, you feel like they just, similar to Hawthorn 2008, they won a flag just before their time. I think they were a bit young. They just sort of played on emotion, and they won the flag just like Hawthorn in 08 when no one thought they would. And Hawthorn didn't make finals the next year, and Doggies have missed out as well.
It's a great shot there of a couple of champions of the game being cheered off. I'm sure next season as well, one of the blokes on the bottom there, Sean Burgoyne, will be getting similar treatment.
Yeah, you imagine he'd just have the 1 year left.
So Collingwood Melbourne, really interesting game of footy. Well, many thought was a soda for Melbourne, really. Collingwood came out and shocked them.
Yeah, they came out flying, Collingwood. They often play well when they really have nothing to play for. So all they could do was upset Melbourne's finals chances, and Jeremy Howe taking another Mark of the Year contender, just like he does every week. That could go down as Mark of the Year. He's left it to the last round. But Collingwood, they were just too hot at the start. They were all over Melbourne.
Well, Jamie Elliott was a real difference maker, especially in the first half. I think he kicked 3 goals in the first half, and it's a sensational snap that he kicked a little bit later in the game. But
yeah, he's been terrific since he's come back this year from injury.
To be fair, it doesn't really mean an awful lot for Collingwood. I mean, they're only really winning when the game doesn't matter. But I guess, at the same time, it's nice to see them put on a bit of a show.
Yeah, capable of playing some good footy against what was a top 8 side. But as we later found out, Melbourne would then go on to miss the 8 due to percentage. So, yeah, a really, really bad loss from Melbourne here.
Yeah, if you're the Melbourne Footy Club, it's the kind of game you just absolutely have to win. You've had a good season. You've built on what you needed to. Some good players have started to emerge. But when it all came down to it, they couldn't get the job done against Collingwood at home. And that's just not good enough.
Yeah, so, very disappointing way for Melbourne to end their season. But that man there, Nathan Buckley, well, what does that mean for him now? We'll find out a bit later on.
the press conference is 10:30, 11:30. Sorry. So Richmond, they secured the double chance. Really, I mean it was a game that many thought they would win because St Kilda thumped them last time. Everyone thought the Tigers might come out with a little bit to prove.
Yeah.
And they got the job done. They were convincing from the start.
Yeah, no, they were far too good, Richmond. You can see Saints drops their heads. They didn't have much to play for. They sort of lost their bundle a bit. Nicky Roo did what he does best in his last game. Took a couple of nice marks and emotional way to end. But yeah, Richmond just too good around the goals. Jacob Townsend came back in, kicked, was it 5?
I think it was 5. He's got 11 in 2 games, I believe.
Yeah, 6. And Dustin Martin was as good as ever. Again,
He
just
can't be stopped. He's too good at the moment, Dusty.
His price just keeps going up as he
just keeps on doing it.
Yeah, I think he had 36 touches and 2 goals to his name.
A little bit of a spark.
Good one too.
For St Kilda, Jay Gresham actually played a really good game.
He did, yeah, he was really good.
He kicked a couple of goals and laid a couple on. He looked really sharp around the sticks, which is positive for St Kilda.
Yeah,
but
kicked 5 in the end.
It's another year for St Kilda where, the positives were there, but they couldn't quite put it all together.
Disappointed that Saints and Melbourne both missed out on the 8, given how much hype was around both of them pre-season. And a few spots in the 8 have opened up with Hawthorn, North and Doggies all coming out. So for them to miss out again would be pretty disappointing.
To be perfectly honest, Richmond, they're going to be scary in September. I don't know if they'll go all the way, but if they play like this, there's a genuine chance that they cause an upset and knock somebody off.
They can. I think it's all in the mind for Tigers. I mean, they've got good players, they've got the skill, but they just seem like a very emotional side. When they play well, they're unstoppable. But sometimes it takes a real lift from the guys like Koch and Martin and Rewalt. If they don't stand up, sometimes they just sort of struggle to get going.
That's just a ridiculous goal from Dustin Martin, really.
Yeah, at a stage where Saints look like they might be closing in there, it was just a couple of goals, but Dustin just, it was just too good.
Yeah, when he needs to lift, he's been lifting all year long, and that's just, I think he had, 34 touches, 2 goals again, something like that.
Yeah. It was terrific.
It'd be very hard to pick a game where Dusty wouldn't really be getting votes this year that Richmond have won.
Do you think if Dangerfield was eligible, do you think Dusty still gets it?
I think he does, yeah. I think just from the umpire's point of view, Martin's just so noticeable. Every time he gets the ball, he's breaking a tackle, offending somebody off. He's using it.
So we see Rewalt last game, very emotional for him. I mean, he played his last game at Etihad last week. And,
great to see Jack cheering him off too. I thought that was a really classy touch from the Tigers.
So this game threw up one of the upsets of the round, perhaps the year. And West Coast, they knew what the equation was coming in. They had to win by 18 points or more. And they just looked a lot harder at it and just wanted a lot more. I mean, Adelaide, they had top spots sewn up. They really didn't have much to play for. So a couple of big outs as well. And West Coast just really threw caution to the wind and got it done. Yeah,
I think obviously not the finals, the run into finals that Adelaide wanted, but I don't think that'll scare Don Pike too much. I mean, I think he knows that they had people out and this game wasn't really too important. But for West Coast, it meant everything. And when the job needed to be done, I know it's at Domain and that's what they do play well. But, top a spot in the 8 was up for grabs and they just got it done. They played well.
Still beat the top side. So would have been some very nervous players and fans for Melbourne watching this game. You saw in the last quarter, Melbourne were in the 8, they were out the 8 on every goal that was kicked. And eventually it was just too much. And they ended up getting in by a couple of goals to spare.
It was interesting as well. Josh Kennedy had a chance to secure the Coleman medal, but he actually kicked 1 goal for. So with Lance's 10 against the Blues on Saturday, Buddy actually wrestled the Coleman medal away from Josh Kennedy, but he was unable to kick straight, which meant that Lance took home his 4th Coleman.
Yeah, so we look at the finals games for next week. We've got the week after following the bye. Adelaide Giants. I think Giants will really rue that loss to Geelong. Now they have to go over there.
That matters.
Yeah. So we've got Geelong v Richmond, we've got Sydney v Essendon, and Port Adelaide versus West Coast now that they've snuck into 8th spot. So
couple of big games. I'm pretty excited for that game with Essendon. I'd love to watch them play in the finals.
I think if there's anyone in that bottom 4 of the 8 that will beat Sydney, I think it could be Essendon because they're capable of playing some very good footy at times.
Nice to see Matty Paredes get another chance as well. His career's extended by a couple of weeks at least. So the Melbourne Storm came out. They were playing against the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
And they had a terrific start. It was 6 minutes in. It was already 12-0. They're just sensational at the moment. They're really hard to stop.
Yeah, they're a really good side, really. Everybody knows that. I know that down here, they just get the job done. That's what the Melbourne Storm do. They really do run all over them, and it was actually a really good result. But I guess in terms of South Sydney, it's not a great showing, to be honest. I mean, the Storm just got the job done start to finish. They always looked in control, and that's just the way it's going at the moment.
Yeah, there was some worrying signs for the Rabbitohs there. Sam Burgess was Was placed on report for a brain fade late in the last quarter. Late in the game, sorry. He's been placed on report for driving a player's head into the ground. And Reynolds also was knocked out at in the first half as well. So it really wasn't a good game coming out for the Rabbitohs. And Storm, I'm not sure if anyone's going to catch them. I think we're coming up into finals, and I think they've got it pretty much sewn up at this stage.
Yeah, they're just looking a bit too strong. It's every single week they're putting on 30 points and they're putting teams away. There's really not a lot that you can do against the Storm when they're in this kind of mood and they just want to score and they're running as hard as they are. So it'll be quite interesting when it does come to finals. It's a great run here.
Yeah, Cameron Smith's been terrific as well. He was great in this game as well. Billy Slade had a very good game as well. And I think they're going to be very hard to stop.
Absolutely. So these are our sports highlights for the weekend. And now we've got live in studio, we've got Tim and we've got Jared giving us the local news. Tim, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Yourself?
Not too bad, Tim. Can you give us a bit of a wrap of what's happened in the EFL?
Yeah, it was a huge week. Div 3 and 4 finals started and Div 1 and 2 last game of the season. And it really did come down to it in the last game. We'll start with Blackburn and Doncaster. Doncaster coming into the game winning, I think they've won 8 in a row. And Blackburn knocked them off to lock in their final spot. So they're going to actually be playing each other next week in the elimination final. So it's going to be very interesting to both Blackburn winning by 8 points. So it'll be interesting to see what both sides actually take out of that game and bring into next week. Because we've seen it before in the past. I think in the AFL, Richmond and North played each other in the last round a couple of years ago. Then played each other in the finals. Obviously, North had a lot of players out that day. So it was a bit different. But it'll be interesting to see what happens next week with that one especially. Noble Park, with Blackburn winning, Noble Park couldn't make it anyway, and they had a pretty poor loss to Vermont. We saw an old-fashioned shootout, though, in front of goal with Jake Best kicking 7 for Vermont and Tim Harper kicking 6 for Noble Park. So that's pretty interesting. We don't see that as much in the game anymore, but I guess in local footy we see it a bit more, which is exciting for the game. So, yeah, it was pretty exciting stuff there. South Croydon and Montrose, pretty lacklustre game. South Croydon needed to win, get back into some form. They've got a qualifying final next week against Baldwin, so they had a big win, 74 points. Matt Jones, who used to play for Melbourne, plays for South Croydon. He was named to come back from his injury, but didn't play. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets back for finals. Maybe knowing that they had the double chance locked up, they might not have risked him, especially a game against Montrose, who aren't too good.
Do you think he's a difference maker in finals if he does play?
I think it definitely had some class to that side, and they've really missed him lately. I think he's Max Jones as well, who they're not related, but he plays in Iraq. He's another really important player. He's been out the last few weeks as well. He's come back, and he makes such a difference to that side as well. So they're two big players for South Croydon. If they can get firing, I think they can get back to their best. I don't know if it'll be good enough, though. Baldwin had a reasonably comfortable win over North Ringwood, but it'll be interesting to see where they come finals time. They've got a qualifying final, as I said, with South Croydon, but no Chris Pendlebury is going to be huge. Key back, and he's so important to that side. So it'll be interesting. They've got a lot of good players, Baldwin, so I'm sure they could cover him, but it's obviously still going to be a massive loss. Bayswater had their second win of the year, which is always good. They're going down to Division 2 next year, and they would have already known that. But it would be good to take some confidence, I say, bringing down a Division 1 scalp to finish their season and get into pre-season as well. So I think it was really important that they, I guess, have some confidence. And they were down by 32 points at three-quarter time, so it's really good momentum that they take into the off season. Norwood and East Ringwood. Norwood had a 25-point win, but it was a bit of a dead rubber, so it didn't really have any bearing on finals, and that how it finished Division 1.
So what are the finals looking like for next week for the matchups for Division 1?
So week off goes to Vermont, who finished on top, only lost one game, so they'll have a week to freshen off and then play again to get into the grand final. So it's pretty handy, I think, finishing on top in a top 5 competition. The qualifying final will be Baldwin against South Croydon. They played it about 3 weeks ago, and Baldwin tore them up. Won by about 10 goals. South Croydon came into the match in good form. Baldwin not as much, and they just did the job, did what they had to do, took care of them. So South Croydon have been a bit down lately, but had a big win this week. So it'll be interesting to see if they get Matt Jones back firstly. I think that'll be a massive in for the game, but I think Baldwin will still get the job done. And the other game will be the elimination final between Doncaster and Blackburn, who I said played this week. So that'll be exciting. It was a close game. Doncaster had won 8 in a row. Blackburn stopped that run, and they've been pretty average lately, Blackburn. So it'll be good. So yeah.
So who are you at this point of the season tipping to win? Who do you think is going to take it out?
I can't go past Vermont. They've lost one game. A lot of people have doubted them throughout the year, actually, in the EFL circles. A few people have tipped against them quite a few times during the year, but they still continue to get the job done. So it's hard to go past them. Division 2 threw up a massive game. Turner South.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were a good chance to make the finals.
They
is
were.
that correct?
They were fourth. Had to play Doncaster East, who was second. So it was going to be a tough ask to get the job done. Matt Clark, who's been coaching for 9 years. I think he was senior assistant as well for 9 before that. So he's been there a long time. He was coaching in his last season. Up by 23 points at three-quarter time and blew it. Lost by 1 point. So it was heartbreaking for them, I guess. Really heartbreaking. They would have been hoping to make... They made the grand final last year and got torn up by Bayswater, lost by over 100 points. So they would have been looking to rectify that. That was, I think, third last halfway through the season, then got on a big roll, got to the last game, destiny in their own hands, and they dropped it by a point. So they're going to be ruining that all over summer, as sure as a bit like the Demons will be as well. So
I'm sure that'll be a good inspiration for pre-season.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Div 3 and 4 started finals. Park Orchards had a win over Templestowe in the qualifying final. Pretty comfortable win. They outran them all day. Templestowe a bit slow and couldn't. They don't have a key forward really either, Templestowe. So if they're not going to be as quick as Park Orchards, it's going to be tough to outrun a side that is so young like Park Orchards. And Division 3, the elimination final in that division was Heathmont and Scoresby. Scoresby won 6 in a row or 7 in a row, I think, going to the finals, but dropped the elimination final to Heathmont by 30 points. So they would have been disappointed with that as well. Division 4, and in Division 3, the week off was Ringwood, so they've got Park Orchards next week in the to go through. Winner goes through the granny. The loser will play the winner of Templestowe and Heathmont. And just quickly in Division 4, Don Vale go through to the grand final. They beat Forest Hill by 32 points, and they're the clear standout, I think, in Division 4. They're going to be very hard to stop. And Whitehorse Pioneers beat Coldstream by 2 goals in the elimination final. So big week this week in EFL, that's for sure. And next week, even more important, I guess, finals in every division. Division 1 and 2 start this week, and Division 3 and 4 into the second week of finals next week. So
lots to look forward to next week for sure,
very.
I think. And I guess now looking over at the NFL, Jared, what did you see this week?
Yeah, it's a really interesting weekend this week. Started in Division 3. It was Banyule who caused an upset, defeating South Morang by 36 points to advance to the grand final. And it was a result that a lot of people around the NFL didn't really expect. South Morang finished on top of the ladder and were red-hot favourites. They had won, I don't know how many games they'd won heading into finals, but they were in some really good form, and there's a bit of a hoodoo on South Morang. The last couple of years, they've been one of the teams to beat going into the last couple of weeks of the season, and just haven't been able to get the job done in finals. So they'll play Epping next weekend for the second spot in the grand final, and they'll hope to make amends for that loss on the weekend. In Division 2, it was North Heidelberg, who have been the story all season. They've been the top team. They defeated Diamond Creek by 78 points this week, and they'll play Diamond Creek again in the second semi-final this weekend in the hopes of booking a spot in the grand final. And Fitzroy Stars and Lower Plenty will be the other game in Division 2. In Division 1, we had a really interesting weekend. It was Hurstbridge, although they didn't have a spot in finals, they really took it up to West Preston, who were sitting 4th or 5th on the ladder, losing by just 10 points. McLeod defeated Northcote Park by, I think it was 84 points in the end, so that was really interesting, 1 and 2 on the ladder, and McLeod really getting the job done and really asserting their dominance, and now they'll get the week off and freshen up, and they might play Northcote Park in the second week of finals, depending on how that matchup goes with Bundoora. Altham, a really interesting game. They needed to win by about 90 points or so to get off the bottom of the ladder and making sure that Whittlesea were the team going down to Division 2, and they were up by about 50 points about 5 minutes before half-time, and Whittlesea kicked 2 goals either side of the major break, and Altham just were kind of deflated from there and couldn't get the job done. Only got up by 32 points in the end, and they will be down in Division 2 for the first time in 16 years. and in a couple of other games, Montmorency got up by, I think it was 34 points in the end over Heidelberg, who both those teams not playing finals, but it was a really good end of the season for Montmorency. And in the final game of the round, it was Bundoora who defeated Greensborough by 12 points.
So I guess our favourite question every week, Jared, how did the Harvey boys go this week?
It was an interesting week for the Harveys. They did win by 78 points, as I said, over Diamond Creek, but I think it was Shane who kind of took the spotlight again, as he kind of always does. He kicked over 100 goals this season, and he kicked another 6 on the weekend. So he was heading into finals with a heap of confidence. Boomer kicked 3 on the weekend, and he was one of the best players on the ground, as you kind of expect when he's playing Division 2 footy. He's one of the best players in the competition, regardless of division.
So what do you think, with all the the people that are retiring in the AFL at the moment, do you think the NFL has a chance to pick up a couple of those boys and maybe see them next year?
I think there definitely is. I think it showed this weekend that there's a lot of AFL talent running around in, especially West Preston. They picked up Ahmed Saad, who kicked 9 goals on the weekend and led the goal kicking for the season with 73 majors. They also brought in Andrew Walker from Carlton and Matthew Stokes, who was a Geelong Premiership player and played at Essendon last year. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see if any of those players who probably don't get a chance at AFL level or even VFL level will come down and play a bit of local footy. We saw Jack Grimes as well come down and play for Hurstbridge this year with his brother. And it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting avenue for retiring players to come.
I did hear that Luke Hodge might be going down and playing a couple of games at Frankston VFL next year. So you can imagine running out there and lining up next to Luke Hodge.
It makes scary task.
And it makes a difference as well. You can see in local footy that when you have someone of AFL talent and they've been in the system for that long, their work ethic, they know what it takes to go to the next step. And we see at the moment with local footy, it's getting more and more professional every year. It's turning in towards sort of semi-professional. Some of the Division 1 clubs are not the AFL, especially NFL, I'm assuming, is the same. I'd say it'd be the same in Western, Southern, down in
It drags a lot of people down to watch.
It does. There's a lot of people that go, paying entry at pretty much every ground you're going to. So apart from the VAPA, I guess, which is meant to be an amateur league with no payments, all the other local leagues, there's a lot of payment. Obviously, the salary cap getting bought in as well the last couple of years brings it down a bit. But it's where AFL players started, and I'm sure that's where they want to finish their careers, at their local clubs. I'm assuming that'd be the same for most players.
Yeah,
I know that's how I would feel.
Yeah, there's not huge names in the VAPA. I mean, they've got Joe Schultz playing at St Kevin's. Reece McKenzie, who was on Richmond's list but couldn't get a game and quit. And we all know about that little saga. He's down at Marston at the moment. So there's not a huge amount in the VAPA.
Yeah.
With all the money that's going into it now as well, it just makes sense when you want to secure AFL players when you can. You want. And and a lot of them, obviously, the money's not the same as playing in the AFL. But if you're still getting paid, you're expected to do a job. And if you've got AFL talent, then you're going to put on the show for supporters.
And it's the coaching element as well, because I know in the AFL this year a lot. On the AFL, a lot this year. There's been a lot of coaching resignations and a lot of clubs advertising for coaches. So getting AFL players out of the system down into local leagues, it provides an opportunity for them to, bring their knowledge to a new coach and even develop their coaching careers themselves. We saw Luke Beveridge won an AFL premiership last year. He obviously also won a premiership for St Bede's as well as coach. So a lot of people say to coach in the AFL, you need to, have experience coaching your own side, and I think locally is where you can start as well. I think
I completely agree.
We're going to wrap this up soon. But Jared, just give us your tip for Div 1 and Div 2 for the flag.
Div 1, you can't go past McLeod. They were 3 games clear on top of the ladder, and they've just been the dominant team all season. And, of course, defeating Northcote Park, probably their closest rival, by 84 points on the weekend. You can't really see any team in Division 1 beating them, especially now that they'll have the week off. And then in Division 2, it's another one you can't go past North Heidelberg. They've just got so much talent on their list. They were the runners-up last year, and I'd assume they're going to go one better in 2017.
Okay, sounds good.
It sounds like going to be a fantastic week of finals for both of you boys, really. Thank you very much for coming in, Tim and Jared. Love your work, as always.
Thank you very much.
Going to take a quick short break, and then we're going to be having a look at the fight that everyone was talking about yesterday, Mayweather versus McGregor.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Good areas, boys. Stuff like
See, what's the face of fast? 70 k's to round walk up.
Welcome back to The Recovery, guys. Michael DePetta with Angus Craig. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well on Twitter at The Recovery LTU. Angus, one of the biggest fights of the modern era, boxing on the weekend, Mayweather versus McGregor. Mayweather took it out. He's now 50-0 for his career. How did you find it?
Yeah, I actually really, as far as a boxing match can go, I did enjoy it. Obviously, we all pretty much knew how the result was going to go. It was always just going to be Mayweather right down towards the back end of the rounds. McGregor, look, to his credit, I think he boxed better than most people thought he would. He started off very well. I think that was probably always expected, though. He did win the first round, and one judge actually gave him the first 3 rounds. The other 2 just gave him the first one. But yeah, we're just seeing some highlights here of him in the just in his regular MMA fighting. So it was a big difference putting the gloves on. Obviously, the punches he was going to throw weren't going to land as hard as they usually do.
I think, yeah, with Floyd, obviously, he's used to he's a boxer, that's what he does. When you're in the UFC, you're watching for movements from all of the body, so obviously Conor, he's wary of feet, he's wary of everything, you can hit wherever you like. Whereas in boxing, you've only really got to be worried about your hands, and so Floyd's been doing that for years and years and years. And, and Conor had a crack. I do respect his efforts, but, yeah, Floyd was always going to take it out. Conor, he's going back to the UFC after this and goes back to what he knows, and I think he'll continue to shine.
Yeah, and Mayweather said that this is going to be his last fight. He's been retired for 2 years. He came out just a bit of money making for this fight. I mean, he had a bit of a laugh during it. He was always going to win it, so he's now retired and take his $200-300 million, whatever he won from that.
It's an interesting side note, actually. The two apparently get on quite well, as much as they give themselves the personas on the camera. Apparently, off it, they're actually quite good friends.
Well, they have to sort of build it up and do all that trash talking to get people interested who wouldn't normally watch it, and it certainly works. It went down as one of the biggest fights. So it's funny, people make it out to be something, I guess, on social media as well, that it's not quite. I mean, there's the two sort of worlds to the fight. There's the actual fight that was both quite respectful. They both fought properly. They spoke nicely and pretty well after the fight towards each other. And then everyone on social media just blows it up into being something that it's not, and talking about how it was all rigged and just how much those two hate each other when it's just probably not really the case.
Yeah, it's just a money-making scheme, really. Obviously, everybody knew that. Anybody who really follows boxing knows that there's that kind of bravado behind the fighters. They're meant to be personalities first in this world, and boxing second. It's just the way it is in terms of getting those pay-per-view contracts. They just want people to be watching who aren't interested in boxing, and it certainly worked. I mean, I tuned in on the weekends, and it's probably the 3rd fight I've ever watched in my life, but I had to watch Mayweather McGregor, and it's just the way it goes. I think
just
these
sort of
days,
watch it to say that you watched it.
It's a thing that people are doing now. If a big fight's being televised, it was the same with Mayweather fighting against Manny Pacquiao. The way that they build it up in the media now, they're unmissable events. That's what they say. Yeah. So you're just used to watching them now. You need to. Conor mentioned apparently he could have gone another 2 rounds. I'm pretty sure he was on the ropes, and he also said he actually wanted the referee to let him hit the floor. Yeah,
well, I don't think he quite knew how the refs are supposed to adjudicate and judge the fight. He was out. He lost control of his legs. As the commentators were saying, that his hands were getting slow, but he was kind of still there mentally, but his legs were giving way, and he was stumbling and falling over the ropes. And they said they were very happy with it. The ref called it off there. Yeah. You could see by about round 7 he was really starting to tire. And then you could see as soon as Mayweather saw that he was done and his feet stopped moving, he just went all out attack. Yeah,
McGregor landed a couple of early jabs, but he only really was landing jabs. He never got a chance to get his hook out. When Floyd started hitting him with some pretty convincing punches, by that point everybody knew, I think, that Conor really wasn't going to last till 12. Yeah. It's just the way that the refs are going to call it. They're not allowed, obviously, when they do start seeing their legs buckle. Yeah. And then starting to sway, the refs do have to make a call, and I think, in this case, it was the right call. It
was only a matter of time, really. I mean, there was still 10 minutes left, 3 and a bit rounds of boxing to go. But if it didn't happen in the next minute of the round, it was going to happen in the next one. So I don't really think McGregor's got much to complain about there for the ref calling it off.
Guess you just feel bad for the blokes who had money on McGregor the last 12. Tell us your thoughts at the recovery LTU. Back to the news headlines, Angus.
A 3-year-old girl in Sydney's West has died after being shot in the neck, and the police are investigating whether the toddler managed to shoot herself inside the family home. Emergency crews were called to the house on Danny Road in Layla Park in Sydney's West just after 8 p.m. on Sunday, following reports of gunfire and loud yelling.
Victorian Nationals MP Russell North is set to resign from the party today, following his struggles with gambling and depression. Mr North has been on paid leave since June, and it is believed that he has racked up significant debt to multiple people following gambling-related incidents.
Asylum seekers are facing a welfare crackdown, and Labor have labelled the government as cruel and heartless over its decision to cut financial assistance to a group of asylum seekers. Refugee advocates claim pregnant women are among those who will be forced to leave the country.
In the AFL, the final 8 was decided on the weekend, with Melbourne making way for West Coast following their loss to Collingwood on Saturday and the Eagles' percentage-boosting win against Adelaide. Richmond have secured their double chance following their victory against St Kilda, Nick Riewoldz's last game, and Lance Franklin has taken out his 4th Coleman after kicking 10 goals on the weekend against Carlton, giving him 69 for the year, 4 more than second-place Josh Kennedy.
In the cricket, Bangladesh finished all out for 260, and the bowlers shared the wickets with Lyon, Cummins and Agar, all taking 3. However, a top-order batting collapse sees Australia 3 for 18 overnight, 242 runs behind.
And breaking news now, Collingwood are set to announce Nathan Buckley's future plans at a live presser at the moment. We're just going to throw to that right now.
We're just going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with that.
Okay.
Welcome back to the recovery. Tweet us at the recovery LTU. So Nathan Buckley, the big news, he's re-signed 2 years back on the Collingwood boards, giving him a chance.
So the big news coming out today is that Nathan Buckley has re-signed for 2 years at Collingwood, following a somewhat disappointing but semi-successful sort of season where they had 9 wins, good win last round over Melbourne. And they've just announced this morning at a press conference that they will continue to keep him on for 2 more.
Yeah, 2 years for Bucks, which I think some people are happy about, some aren't really. I'm not convinced by him as an AFL coach. I think a lot of the time he lacks a plan B, and I think for the list that he has, he is underachieving. But it's a vote of confidence by the board, and he's got another chance to get his stuff together.
Yeah, look, I'm not 100% certain on his coaching ability, but I do like the way he speaks. I do like listening to him when he gives press conferences and goes on shows. He seems very measured and calculated about what he says. Again, it's hard to tell coaching abilities. I mean, you get a bit of an insight onto what they do on game day and to what players say at training. So it's not always accurate to tell. But, yeah, they clearly have faith in him. And from what the players say, they all love him. And they all put faith in him.
I think he's a very professional coach in terms of the way he goes about it. As a footballer, he was exactly the same. I think Bucks approached the game in a pretty confident way and a pretty professional way. And I think he has taken that to his coaching role, but I just don't know if his message is getting through to the players or his game plan isn't working, because with the list that they have and where they've come from in 2010, obviously with the flag, they've just gone downhill year by year, and they're not looking like breaking the duck anytime soon.
Yeah, I think they have. On the latter perspective, they have gone down every year since then. So it'll be interesting if he can get them back up. They've had a couple of trade fails. I
think they really let themselves down with Main and Wells.
But in saying that, they have picked up players like Taylor Adams and Jeremy Howe, who have both been very good, and Adam Treloar as well. I mean, that's three of their top
Absolutely.
top 5-6
Treloar's
players.
been a fantastic player, but at the same time, he was 2 top 10 picks were given up for him. You don't see that in the AFL very often, and I don't think there's many players that are worth that. They took a gamble on him. It has paid off. He has been good.
Do you know who went for the 2 top picks?
No, I'm not quite sure who was used with the picks, but just to give up that much talent in general for one player is hard to justify. But I'm not certain that with the midfield that they have, especially the midfield, I don't think Buckley's going to.
Yeah, well, I think it's always been the spine that's been their problem. Really been lacking the key forward. So, I mean, Darcy Moore, hopefully he can step up, but Frost left and Nathan Brown left. So, yeah, we'll see how they go.
Well, he's got 2 more years. We're going to see how he goes. We're cutting to a break now. We'll be back soon.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Welcome back to The Recovery. Michael DePetta alongside me, Angus Craig, as always. Welcoming in guest Jacob Doole, writer for The Raw. Jacob, how are you?
Good. How you boys going?
Not bad
thank
at all.
you, yeah.
So obviously we've got you in today. We want to talk about one of the biggest trades the NBA's seen in a long time, Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving. What did you make of it?
I think it's one of the biggest trades we've had sort of even in recent years, especially now with this sort of new element where it might not even go through because of some bad medical reports from Isaiah Thomas. But even ignoring all of that, I think it was one of those rare sort of win-wins for both teams, which you don't really see too often.
So who do you think did come out better on the deal?
I think probably Cleveland, just because it really let them build for 2 different futures that they could have coming up. So a lot of people think LeBron James is going to leave at the end of this season and go somewhere else. And I think by getting Isaiah Thomas, they can stay competitive for his last season and still get some really good assets for the future in Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and another draft pick.
So what sort of impact do you think this is going to have? I mean, we've got 2 sides who are most likely going to play off in conference finals, swapping point guards. What do you think it's going to have in terms of a matchup next time they come up against each other?
It's definitely going to make it a lot more heated, I think. There's going to be a lot more in it. A couple of players who will really want to prove themselves to their old teams. But in terms of purely on the court, I think it's still going to be a really even matchup and a really interesting one when it gets there, which it should be in the conference finals, as you said.
Do you think Cleveland, in terms of what they want to do next season, do you think packaging the pick with, say, Kevin Love or Tristan Thompson and making a move for someone like DeMarcus Cousins or something like that, do you think that's the way to go now that they have Isaiah Thomas as well? Do you think they need to make a move with that pick?
I think they definitely could, yeah. It's sort of all about waiting for when a superstar like DeMarcus Cousins potentially or someone else maybe comes onto the market. If they think that'll help keep LeBron James in Cleveland, they should absolutely do whatever they can. But it's sort of a matter of waiting and seeing how the trade market pans out, I think.
And with Isaiah as well, he's copped, I feel quite sorry for him, he's copped some backlash from a few Celtics fans who obviously don't really understand the way it's working. He's been traded, he hasn't asked to leave. Do you think that's really unfair? I think it is.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, especially given everything that he went through while on the team. You know, he played through this really bad hip injury in the playoffs. His sister passed away. He played 2 days later. I think it's pretty harsh from the team to trade him in the first place, but, you know, that's business, that's basketball. But for the fans to react the way they did, I think is a little bit crazy.
Do you think with what Golden State have done, putting together their super team of 4 players, do you think the way that Boston have traded, I think it's impacted the way the NBA teams now, they're trying to build superstar rosters. Do you think maybe 3 years ago without Golden State, maybe Isaiah doesn't get traded and Boston show a little bit of loyalty? Do you think Golden State started this whole kind of super team persona?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely sort of warped the trade market and the way that NBA teams do things. So, yeah, teams are sort of putting everything else aside, all loyalty to get these superstar players.
And so who's your pick, I guess, next year? You can't say until you see them play, but who do you think will come out on top if they were to play in the conference finals? Do you think you give it to Boston or do you give it to Cleveland?
I'll probably give it to Cleveland still, purely because LeBron James is there. I don't think you can go past him when it comes to the big games, but it'll definitely be a closer matchup now, and it'll be a really interesting one, I think.
And obviously, Isaiah's left a bit of a void in terms of scoring for Boston. I think it was at 29 points a game or something like that. Getting Gordon Hayward helps. But does Kyrie need to score 30 points a game for him to be worthwhile making the trade?
I don't think so. I think if he can show a bit more playmaking skills than he did in Cleveland, that'll help the team as well. As you said, Gordon Hayward will step up, and they've got some really good young guys who I think can take the next step. And Jason Tatum coming in as a rookie, I think there's plenty of options there. They've got a lot of good depth now. So yeah, I think Kyrie can keep sort of a bit of a lesser scoring role than he maybe seems like he needs to have.
So how do you think this trade's going to affect the overall title race?
I still think it's Golden State's to lose really at this stage, but it'll definitely make the East a bit more interesting to watch. But it's hard to see Golden State being stopped once they get to the finals, which they probably should, but short of an injury or something you can't really see happening.
It's hard to see them dropping a game, to be honest. But yeah, in the East now, there's been a lot of talk about the East being the weaker conference in recent years. Do you think the East, if the trade does go through, obviously not official, do you think that makes the East the stronger conference?
No, I don't think so. I think the East up the top is pretty good. There's some really good teams there. Cleveland, Boston, sort of Toronto, those kind of teams. But it drops off, I think, a lot more quickly than the West. The West, you've got just so much depth. Some of these teams that aren't even going to make the playoffs are really good teams. I think the West has a lot more depth there, but the East is definitely picking up a bit of ground on them.
So with this hip injury that Isaiah is carrying in terms of Cleveland's ability to overturn the trade, how long do they have, and what do you think they should do? If it's a short-term injury, should they continue, holding Isaiah Thomas, or should they turn it back around on Boston?
Yeah, well, I think at the moment it's all speculation, all rumours. Is that Cleveland would like to ask for another asset from Boston, another draft pick potentially to push the trade through. I don't think Boston are going to do that. I don't think they'll want to anyway. They definitely will try to avoid it. I still think this is a trade that Cleveland should take, unless it's an injury that's going to keep Isaiah Thomas out for a long time, or potentially be a really, really sort of debilitating injury. I still think the other assets they get are probably worth it for the future flexibility it gives them. So I think the trade will go through eventually. It's just a matter of when and if it changes at all along the way.
So Danny Ainge, in terms of being a GM, he's regarded as one of the better GMs in basketball. With his picks, he's been pretty stingy so far. He had a chance to get Jimmy Butler, Paul George, guys like that. Why did he now throw the pick out, for Kyrie Irving? What's the difference?
I get the feeling that even though everyone wants Boston to, win now, get these superstars, I still think Kyrie Irving, even though he's a superstar, you could say he's in his prime, I still think this is sort of a forward-thinking move. They've got all these guys in the window of sort of 22, 25. Outside of Al Horford, they're all sort of in that bracket. So I still think they're building for a future where maybe Golden State's not there, maybe LeBron's dropped off a bit. And so I think that's why this was the superstar he finally chose to bite on. It sort of gives them a bit more to look to the future for.
Do you think, in terms of the trade that they did make, is Kyrie, obviously he's the youngest, and he probably does have the most ability, but did Boston need a Jimmy Butler or a Paul George more than they needed Kyrie Irving?
I guess that depends on the deals for those players. If Isaiah Thomas was in there, if they were keeping Isaiah Thomas still, then those guys probably would have been better complements. But I think the fact that they had to give up Isaiah in a trade, he likely would have been in a trade for any of those other guys. So I think Kyrie is the kind of player they would want to get in, given that.
And for Cleveland now, LeBron James, obviously people are talking about where he might end up. People are throwing the Lakers around, things like that. Do you think after this season, if they show with Isaiah that they can make a run for the title, and obviously I do think they can, do you think LeBron ends up staying?
I think there's a good chance, yeah. I think if they can have a good showing with Isaiah and a bit more depth that they've got now, maybe make a deal with that pick, as you said, with Kevin Love, I think there's a good chance he'll sign another 1-year deal as he has the last few years. I don't think he's going to commit long-term, but there's definitely a chance he stays, maybe Isaiah stays, and they have one more go at it.
And if it all goes wrong, if it all goes pear-shaped for Cleveland, what is their next move in terms of if Isaiah does get injured and LeBron James does leave? What are Cleveland going to do? Where does that leave them?
Not in a great spot. It's going to be a bit of a long-term job after that, I think, which I know Cleveland fans wouldn't be happy about. But they do have a bit of flexibility. I mean, Isaiah, if they can't keep him, he's out of contract at the end of the year. LeBron's off the books, and you've got some draft picks to work with now. So it's not good, but it's not the disaster it was looking like it might be when Kyrie Irving asked for this trade.
Do you think now that Kyrie and Isaiah are new sides, do you think that they're a chance for MVP?
I don't think for MVP. I think they could. I especially think Kyrie Irving could definitely step up from what he did last season and maybe move into the mix. But I still think he's sort of a level below your LeBrons and your Steph Currys and your Kevin Durant's.
So you think it's a good positive thing for their game though by moving? You think it'll improve?
Yeah, I think Kyrie will definitely improve in the Celtics system. He's going to get some great shots. It's a bit harder to say for Isaiah. I think it's sort of playing with players like LeBron James. Some players thrive, some players don't. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he fits in there. But it could definitely help him, I think, yeah.
I think with playing with LeBron James, I think a lot of players might take it for granted. But I guess at the end of the day, we'll just see how it pans out. It's going to make for a really interesting and exciting Eastern Conference and NBA landscape. Jacob, thank you very much for coming in and chatting to us. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
No worries. We're going to have a chat now about the US Open, guys. About to start off, obviously, and some big names out of the draw.
Yeah, there are some big names. We've got Djokovic, Murray, Wawrinka, and Nishikori, Raonic are all out. So it's just going to be between, you'd think, sort of Nadal, Kyrgios, and Federer, obviously.
Yeah, the man on screen, Nick Kyrgios, he's coming off his a title win. He's in probably, well, maybe not the form of his life, but he's playing very good tennis. He's got a genuine chance if he keeps his head on his shoulders and he's focused to actually take something out here.
Yeah, he is a genuine chance. Still probably hasn't won back a lot of respect from the Australian fans. I don't think that the majority are really going to be going for him. But we've never really... It's been a long time since we've had an Australian perform this well at this high level. So it's weird sort of not backing the Australian in. But yeah, he has a genuine chance.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm still on the Nick Kyrgios train. I do love Nick as a tennis player. Obviously, he has his moments on and off the court, but somebody of his age, with his profile, I guess you do need to expect that a little bit. But it's also at the same time, Roger Federer at 36 years of age, and then Nick's the young talent, but Fed just keeps on pushing. Yeah,
well, it could just be the year for the Fed. I mean, he's already won 2 out of the 3 titles. He's playing just as well. So he's a genuine chance to come out and make it 3 from 4. Even as you said, at 36 years of age. And I think Zverev is also a chance as well, just for an outside wild card.
I think with Federer, he's just so classy. Whenever he plays, he hardly looks like he's exerting any effort. Every time he walks on court, you expect him to win because he's Roger Federer. But it's pretty remarkable that this season, given his age and given the competition that he's facing, that he's already won 2 Grand Slams. And honestly, he'd be probably a favourite for the 3rd one this year.
Yeah, I think he probably would be. Just got a very calm head, and I think he'll go particularly well against Kyrgios. He's just a lot smarter, a lot wiser, and he just knows how to play. He might not be the biggest, the strongest, or the fittest anymore, but he's very classy and he knows where to put the ball. So I think I'd say he's the favourite.
What do you think in terms of a matchup? Do you think your ideal matchup is a Kyrgios-Federer semi-final, something like that?
As in what I'd like to see.
Yeah, what would you like to see as the draw progresses?
I would like to see that. I'd love to see those two go at it. Yeah, just the old legend versus the new young gun, the cool head versus bit of a hot head. I'd really like to see that. I'd love to see Federer get up. And saying that, I'm not a huge Kyrgios fan myself. I think he's a bit of a goose.
It's hard to look past Federer in terms of a personality. I mean, everybody loves him. He's Mr. Tennis. But I think, for Nick, reputation-wise, this is his chance. This is Nick's chance probably to leave a few of his demons behind maybe and actually make a name for himself, not as a hothead, but as a relevant ATP tennis player.
Yeah, I mean, the chance to win the tournament is obviously there for him, but I think you're right. The chance to redeem himself, I guess, and put himself back in a positive light is also there. So he has got a lot to play for the Open. So, look, it seems as though he has improved recently. He's improved his game. But he still, has the argument with the umpire every now and then. That's just not a really good look.
I think with Nick, Australians, they love a battler and they do like a little bit of spice, as in general. But he's alienated a lot of people simply because he's been disrespectful.
Yeah, when he goes out there and throws games, doesn't try, and then turns to the reporters and says that they should try doing what he does. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. They obviously can't. They can't do that because you're not a tennis player. But you are in that position. You are a tennis player. We're cheering for you. We want you to win. And a lot of the time it doesn't look like he wants it. And I think the Australian public takes that into account. But this is his chance, maybe, to put it behind him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's going to be an interesting Open for sure with those big names out. So we're going to go now to our unique sport of the week.
Our favourite segment.
We were planning to play regular golf.
Yeah, we were going to have a round of 9. I was going to wipe the floor with him, that's what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah.
But we rocked up to Churnside Golf Club and found out of the move to
It not only was it not open, it had been destroyed and relocated. So we resided to some mini golf just down the road with some little adventure obstacle courses. And we made sure that no one was on there when we got on.
Really did test us a little bit, patience and skill-wise. But
yeah, tempers did flare. But yeah, we had a couple little hit with the bats, and so here's what we have.
Have a look. Alright, so we started the day now down at Maroondah Adventure Park in Churnside. Got some mini golf on the cards. Angus is just a little bit late to the party, so we're getting changed. Going to have a couple of battles on the mini golf course, and then maybe have a whack on the driving range as well. So thrilling contest, but I managed to get over the line. Angus choked it away, as always at the end.
I had a chance to win the game there at the end, and like always, my power let me down.
Yeah, common problem for the kid. But I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. All right, so what did you think, guys? I reckon pretty handy mini golfers here. Obviously, I got the win.
Yeah.
Which is expected from the start, really. Angus can't
I did
do
struggle a little
bit.
bit.
But yeah, pretty interesting day out and pretty competitive out there.
It was a bit competitive, yeah. I had to had to go and get a feed halfway through and got a couple of phone calls, so a bit delayed, but yeah, we got it done in the end.
And so, in terms of competition, we've actually just had a tweet. Who would win in a boxing match between you and I? I actually fancy myself, to be honest.
No, I would wipe the floor with you.
See, you say that now, but your performances so far have been nothing short of subpar on the field. I feel like I'd have you covered.
As soon as it gets physical and I get angry,
you don't like being touched.
Exactly. Rule. So if you touch me, I will destroy you.
I just don't feel like it's going to end that way. If you've got any other questions for us, any other thoughts at the Recovery LTU, we'd love to hear from you. Love to have a chat about a few things, especially when it concerns me and Angus going at each other.
That's probably a suggestion for one of our unique sports.
Maybe we should get
Go
in
the ring. Or maybe we just play some Wii boxing.
Yeah, I might get Floyd to give me
Maybe
a
some
couple
Wii
of tips.
sports, actually. That'd be a good unique sport.
Maybe we should do that. Or sumo suits.
Sumo
Not a
suits,
bad
those
idea.
big puff-up suits. Just kicking the
In terms of
tails out of each other.
in terms of competition and disagreement as well, Angus, a couple of weeks ago you said something to me, and I didn't agree with you at the time, but I kind of let it slide, but now I've got to make it known. You said that Joe Danaher was a lock for the All-Australian team over Lance Franklin. Now, Lance came out on the weekend and absolutely blew that to shreds. 10. He outscored Carlton on his own. How could you possibly have Lance Franklin out of your All-Australian team?
How could I have put Lance Franklin out 3 weeks ago because he kicked 10 last week? Is that what you're asking?
No, what I'm asking is, as a general rule, running without Lance Franklin in your team...
It's more probably
It's
just I don't
ludicrous.
really like him. So, I don't know. I didn't say he was better than Danaher. I didn't say Danaher was better than him. I said I would prefer to have Danaher at that stage in my All-Australian team over Buddy. Not to say Buddy couldn't make it as well, but I would rather have Danaher in at that stage.
I think,
And, he
Lance proved
probably...
his worth on the weekend.
He definitely is the number one forward now.
We're not worthy of him, really. Lance, when he comes to play, he blows everyone out of the water. He's nothing on this planet.
Liam Jones, he'd been pretty good this year, but he got torn to shreds.
He started getting nervous in the fourth quarter. You could tell that's a little bit out of bounds.
Yeah.
Liam Jones, he was worried. You could see that when Buddy got in control, he had Liam Jones in his back pocket.
Yeah.
Liam Jones, another bloke we've actually chucked up in terms of AA selection. Well, I have personally. Next week we're going to be looking at the Recovery's All-Australian team.
Yeah.
So we've had a chat amongst ourselves. We've picked the players we think should be in the All-Australian team. Probably not the same as the AFL's one, but yeah, it'll be interesting to have a look at.
Yeah, there's probably... I think most teams will be 90% the same, but there are probably a few guys on the fringe. I mean, the key forwards will be up for discussion, whether you play the one or two ruckman or which ruckman gets it, because it's really out of Jacobs, Ryder and Cruiser, you would think. A couple of backline players like Hibbard and Elliot Yeo and Jeremy Howe, whether they all get in. So... And Clayton Oliver, does he get in?
Yeah, well, I think he's had a sensational season. He's been a terrific player for Melbourne this year. Melbourne missed out in the finals. I don't know if that impacts AA selection at all. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But maybe, them falling short at the final hurdle might cost them a spot in the AA team. It's hard to know.
Yeah, so we'll do that as well as our Mad Monday All-Australian.
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, which side you would like to have your All-Australian Mad Monday with?
I think I'm naming Swanee at full forward for that one, if I'm honest.
Swanee gets in there. Surely Milne gets to go in there as well.
Brennan Favola on the half-forward flank, just running them up.
Yeah, I think Buddy probably gets... Brian Lake could get in there.
Yeah, he'd probably have a run.
He'd run a bit of a
Bit of Angus Craig maybe out of the guts.
Oh, yeah, no, I'd take a spot on the bench, I think.
I think you always take a spot on the bench, mate. That's your preferred seating.
I usually run the water, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that next week. We've got a jam-packed show, obviously, coming up. It's all about finals footy. Everything's about finals at the moment. We're getting into the pointy end of the season. Nobody expected, the scenario this weekend to play out with Melbourne falling out of the 8.
Yeah.
There's a lot to look forward to. And the EJ Whitten Ledgers game as well, always a laugh.
Yeah, there's some relevant players playing this one this year, I believe. I think Matt Spanger.
I believe he is playing.
Ex-Hawthorn player. He'll get a game, so that'll be interesting to watch.
Getting those long locks on display again.
Yeah. Typically, the EJ Whitten game, it's good, but it has taken a little bit of a slide in the last couple of years, so hopefully it can get back up.
So we've had a couple of talks as well. We've had some Twitter references about Toby Green for AA. Toby, on talent, yes, is an All-Australian player.
Yeah.
But this season, one, he's let his club down too many times. He hasn't played enough games. And he's been dirty.
Yeah. Rory Gray gets in ahead of him for mine. Depends. He could get in, just depends on whose spot he takes. I mean, does he take Eddie Betts' spot? Probably not.
No,
I think Robbie Gray's kicked 40-plus goals, so I think he has to get
in. In terms of his impact on the game, Toby is certainly an All-Australian player. He's a very talented footballer.
Definitely.
But it's all between his ears for Toby.
Yeah, he copped a big knock on the weekend too.
When he focuses and he plays hard and he's helping his team, he's probably the best small forward in the game in terms of impact.
Yeah.
But when he's not thinking about it, it's a bit hard to put him in your AA team. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. So I'd love to thank Jacob for coming in, Tim and Jared as always. They've done a great job. Angus, thank you very much. Another great show at the Recovery LTU on Twitter. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay.